for more on the death of Osama bin Laden, we are joined over the phone from D.C. by Anthony Cordesman. He's a national security analyst at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, and he helped develop the U.S. strategy in Afghanistan. Tony, thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate it. We were just talking with Stephen Hadley, the former national security advisor. One of the questions that we didn't quite get to was Al-Qaeda. What happens to the network of Al-Qaeda now that Osama bin Laden has been killed?
As far as we can determine, he has been in this compound really working through a very narrow range of people. He hasn't lost authority or control, but he is not going to be a figure whose disappearance really is going to cripple Al-Qaeda. The fact is that the networks involved are going to recover relatively quickly. A lot of the operations have shifted to places like Yemen and to affiliates that range from groups in Algeria to places below the Sahara Desert in Africa to groups in Europe. The reality is this is important, but it does not affect the fact that the war on terrorism is going to be intact and is going to continue for years.
Is the faction in Yemen, the Al-Qaeda faction there, the one that we most need to worry about?
I think we need to be very careful. The attacks on the United States are actually only a small fraction of Al-Qaeda operations. And the cells that would attack us, or that could succeed, could come from virtually any of the groups that are affiliated with Al-Qaeda, including ones in Europe. We simply don't know which of those cells is going to be the source of attacks on the United States. It is the group in Yemen which presents the greatest threat to Saudi Arabia, the Gulf states, and the flow of oil, and that could become a new source of major instability because of problems not only in Yemen, but the rest of Africa and the Red Sea.
Tony, you mentioned earlier, this is not going to change significantly, the war on terrorism. But, the war in the Middle East has had one face for Americans. It's been Osama bin Laden, the capture and the killing of him. Now that this has happened, it certainly removes one unifying goal for Americans. It's got to change in many ways our appetite for a further war there.
I think we may have to explain to the American people that we have, to some extent, made a symbol out of bin Laden. But that doesn't affect the security of the Gulf, and the United States depends on moderate oil prices and the flow of oil to the entire economy. It doesn't affect the fact that there can be very real threats coming out of Afghanistan and Pakistan. We have to remember that bin Laden was found in a compound only 40 miles away from Islamabad, right, in a city where you have not only a military academy, but a Pakistani division.
Back with Tony Cordesman, a national security analyst at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS. Tony, some final thoughts with you. I want to get on Pakistan. How much do you think the Pakistanis knew or did not know about this operation?
The president has made it explicitly clear that no country was informed, and in fact only a very small number of Americans knew about this for security reasons. The Pakistani Foreign Ministry has issued a statement which basically does not challenge the fact the U.S. conducted this operation, but the Foreign Ministry has always been somewhat more favorable to the U.S. position than elements within the military and ISI.
But you believe these public statements, Tony?
I think that from the way this was conducted, the answer is yes. This was a compound that was attacked by 2 U.S. CH-47s. It was all U.S. Special Forces. They went in and out within a remarkably short period of time, and I think there are no indications that this was conducted with Pakistani support. More than that, again, we're going to have to wait and be patient. But no one has yet explained how bin Laden could actually be in a city of 100,000 people that is a main center for the Pakistani military forces, and not, as people thought for years, hiding in some kind of cave in the distant parts of the Fata region.
Tony, you raise a good question. Certainly a lot of questions still unanswered in this. Tony, thank you very much. Tony Cordesman of CSIS.